They uncovered the hidden power of Deborah, the shocking judge who saved Israel from defeat. Few knew what truly happened that night in the shadow of the mountains, where fear clung to the air like a heavy fog. In a land bruised by war, whispers of dread filled the hearts of every man, woman, and child. The Israelites trembled, their spirits broken under the weight of oppression. They looked upon the golden chariots of Sisera, the enemy, glimmering wickedly in the sun, a chilling reminder of their own defeat. No one questioned their doom, they had lost hope. Until one extraordinary woman dared to rise. Deborah stood in a place of power, not just as a wife, but as a prophetess, the very essence of strength wrapped in gentleness. Flame-like, her hair danced in the wind, a beacon of resilience. She called the people to gather at her palm tree, under its sprawling branches where wisdom and strength intertwined. Her voice, steady yet soft, echoed through the valleys. "Arise, for the Lord commands us." But who could believe? Who could trust this woman when the chaos of despair seemed so absolute? The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of crimson. Dread clawed at hearts. They remembered the countless times their cries echoed unanswered. Yet, somehow, Deborah stirred something deep within them, and ember sparked despite the gathering storm. She summoned Barak, a warrior weary from aching defeat, and boldly told him, "You will lead us into battle, me?" His voice faltered, disbelief casting shadows across his face. "We're outnumbered, they have iron chariots." The fear hummed beneath their feet, it was palpable. Yet Deborah's gaze pierced through that fear. "You will go. For the Lord has promised victory." But how could she be so certain? Was this divine assurance, or reckless ambition? The tension hung heavy, binding them in a moment of hesitation. The air crackled with indecision as they contemplated this incredible possibility. Could such a miraculous shift occur? The day of battle arrived, shrouded in an eerie silence. The pounding of hooves echoed against the earth, shattering the quiet like glass. Soldiers of Israel stood uneasy, hearts racing, claws of dread threatening to drag them under. What was bound to happen? Whispers of doubt slithered through their ranks, stealing their courage as Sisera's chariots, a wild and terrible wave, surged forward. Shadows danced across their faces, reflecting their innermost fears, and then it was chaos. Metallic clanging rang out like thunder, cries of despair pierced the air as darkness threatened to swallow them whole. Yet, amidst the clash of swords and the pounding of hearts, a voice cut through the fear, Deborah's voice, clear and unwavering, calling them to remember. In that moment, something miraculous ignited. The sky unleashed a storm, rain pouring down in torrents, washing away the dust of fear and revealing a path to freedom that none could see before. Was it just coincidence, or was this whispers of a divine plan that no one dared to comprehend? Suddenly the enemy's chariots bogged down in the mud, unable to move. The Israelites, roused from their disbelief, charged forward, spirits lifting at the sight of hope. Could Deborah's hidden power truly save them? Would this incredible victory turn the tides for Israel? As the battle raged, and the ground trembled with unexpected triumph, one question lingered: what other secrets lay in the heart of this remarkable woman? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the storm raged above, the tumult of battle below mirrored the chaos of nature. Debris whipped through the air, and the claps of thunder underscored the cries of warriors entwined in fierce combat. On that muddy field, as Sisera's men floundered in confusion, Barak fought with determination, his heart soothed by Deborah's unyielding presence even from afar. Yet as the battle intensified, a nagging question lingered in Barak's mind: what drove Deborah to such courage, to claim a victory that felt impossible, in the midst of the fray, with swords clashing and fervor unfurling? A profound realization struck him. Deborah was not just a judge, she was a vessel of the Lord's whispers, channeling divine power that coursed through her like a river. The connection he felt to her felt palpable even in the chaos. How many more voices remained unspent in silence? How often had the weary souls around him turned away from their calling, shackled by doubt? As the rain continued to pour, one of Sisera's chariots slid into a nearby drift. The wheel, once a symbol of mighty oppression, now churned uselessly, a stark reminder that the very forces that once intimidated them were now rendered powerless by divine intervention. The Israelites surged forward, emboldened by the sight and by Deborah's enduring spirit echoing in their hearts, urging them onward. Yet in the whirlwind of triumph, Sisera, the captain of the enemy, slipped from the fray, a shadow amongst the chaos. He had seen the tide turning, had felt the panic sprouting in the choking air, and with a fierce resolve, he took flight, abandoning his men. Barak's victory felt incomplete. The enemy general still roamed free, a testimony of lingering fear that taunted victory. Meanwhile, Deborah stood on a nearby rise, her clothes drenched and her spirit unwavering. She was not merely a participant, she was a weaver of fate, threading destiny through her unwavering faith. Can victory flourish in the absence of justice? She pondered, casting her gaze onto the horizon where the storm clouds began to part, revealing a glimmer of sunset. What will be the price of this conquest? Deep within her, echoes of the ancient text stirred. The praises of her predecessors, whispered in shadows, foretold of a woman who would arise in a time of need, but did they also speak of sacrifice? She felt the weight of the moment, a tension strumming like the strings of an instrument awaiting a bow. What did it mean to carry such influence? To stand as a beacon while knowing the storm could return? As the day drew to a close, the bones of the defeated lay strewn upon the battlefield, fear and joy intertwined like vines. Victory belonged to Israel, but with each cheer, Deborah could feel the crackling energy of uncertainty beneath. The storm may have passed, but had darkness truly been vanquished? When the sun settled, dipping into the horizon, a flicker caught her eye, a motion in the thickets where the shadows dwelled. Could it be Sisera, plotting his revenge, weaving a path of madness through those who sought peace? Or was it the specter of doubt lingering in their minds, a reminder that battles of the heart often remain unresolved? In that moment, a reflection coursed through her spirit. What was gained today, and what might need to be embraced as they trudged onward? As the people sang praises of the miraculous victory, another question emerged in Deborah's heart. How was one to prepare for the battles still hidden in the coming dawn? The sun lingered lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the battlefield, revealing both the triumphs and the remnants of a fierce struggle. Deborah, surrounded by her triumphant people, felt the exhilaration of victory mingle with the somber weight of unfulfilled duty. The cheers of the Israelites echoed, yet within her heart stirred a deep uncertainty. What lay ahead if Sisera, the orchestrator of their suffering, eluded their grasp? While Barak rallied his men, scouring the grounds for the enemy's remnants, Deborah withdrew to a quieter corner, seeking solace in the whispers of the Almighty. As she knelt in prayer, her heart ventured into the depths of intuition and insight. What was the purpose of this battle, she wondered, if Sisera's shadow still loomed? Could a victory so celebrated be shaken by the escape of one man? Teach me, O Lord, she implored, her voice mingling with the birds returning to their nests. Am I a judge to celebrate or to serve? In her meditative state, visions began to unfold, a tapestry woven with past and present, binding her to the legacy of her people. She saw women rising up in battle, their hearts ablaze with passion and resolve, their voices echoing the truths she had shared. It was a strange sight, and within it lay a profound mystery, the strength of unity, the power of shared purpose. Her thoughts turned to Jael, the wife of Heber, who dwelled near the encampment of Sisera. What role would she play in the unfolding drama? Deborah knew that these women who supported one another were the very pillars of Israel's hope. What invisible threads would connect them now, in the quest for justice and peace? As darkness weighed heavy upon the land, she felt a kinship with those who dared to step fearlessly into the shadows, where courage often spoke the loudest. As the last light faded and the stars ignited the firmament, Deborah felt an insistent pull in her spirit. It was as if the world had quieted around her, urging her to rise and reclaim her power, the power to summon the divine. Remembering the legacy of Miriam and the haunting song of the sea, she allowed her hands to lift skyward. As she called out, her voice resonated like a bell ringing through the night, lifting the weight of the silence. "Let justice flow like water," she cried. "And let Sisera be held accountable." With each word, she felt the ancient powers surging through her veins, evoking a purpose greater than herself. The air crackled, and she sensed a chorus of unseen voices joining her, affirming that the battle was not just flesh and blood, it was also of spirit and resolve. Meanwhile, as Barak returned with weary soldiers around him, he sensed a change in the air. The sky shimmered with potential, yet it bore a hint of apprehension. He had been fighting external foes, but was he prepared to confront the internal hesitations that plagued his heart? At that moment, he looked at Deborah, her silhouette etched against the darkening sky, and understood something profound. They were not merely warriors. They were stewards of fate, bound together by faith and purpose. But Sisera was still at large, lurking somewhere in the dark. What would it take to ensure that their triumph was not ephemeral, but lasting? What new words were needed to be spoken to turn the tide once more, in the quiet of night, while the echoes of celebration still danced around them? A question loomed larger than before. How could they foster unity and courage in a time of uncertainty, when shadows threatened to swallow their hard-won light? As night enveloped the land, the flicker of torches pierced the darkness, illuminating the faces of weary but triumphant warriors. Around the central fire, stories of valor and resilience intensified the era's shared breath of hope forged in battle. Yet, despite their apparent victory, a dense shroud of anxiety clung to the hearts of Israel's people. Sisera was still at large, and the promise of peace felt like a whisper carried by the wind. Deborah rose from her place of solitude, her spirit emboldened by the divine turmoil that churned within her. The flickering flames danced behind her, casting her figure in shades of light and shadow, as she called forth Barak to her side. "We must not linger in the warmth of past glories," she urged him, her voice steady yet filled with urgency. "The enemy may have fled, but the battle is not yet won. We have a duty to confront the evils that lurk beyond our sight." Barak felt the weight of her words settle across his shoulders, a mantle of responsibility that stirred something deep within him. He had fought bravely alongside the men of Israel, yet the absence of Sisera ignited an uncertainty that festered in the depths of his heart. Would they march on and face the unseen adversary, or would they allow their fear to dictate the course of their fate? "I will gather the men," he declared, determination knitting his brow. "But what if it is not fear we face but betrayal from within? The soil of our hearts has been tilled by strife and division. Can we trust one another?" Deborah placed a hand on Barak's shoulder, grounding him. "Unity is forged not merely through triumph, Barak, but through facing the hardness of truth. Sisera's escape is a call for vigilance, but more importantly, it is an opportunity for renewal." A glimmer of something indefinable pulled in her eyes as she spoke, igniting the spark of inspiration in both their hearts. Far from the raucous fire, nestled among the hills, Jael stirred in her home, wrestling with feelings she could scarcely articulate. The whispered winds carried the sounds of celebration, yet her heart was heavy. Should she act? Should she make her voice known, claiming her own space in the tapestry of Israel's destiny? Jael thought of the courage it took to step beyond the expected, to change the narrative of a woman's place in a man's world. Could she truly become an instrument of God's will? In that moment, the figure of Sisera filled her mind, mirroring her tribulations with every turn. He had always been a symbol of oppression, a shadow that loomed over her and her people. Her hands trembled at the thought of the precarious choice that lay before her. Would she protect her household at the cost of the larger vision? Or would she confront the enemy, risking everything to forge a new destiny? Back by the fire, Deborah felt a shift in the atmosphere, an almost electric anticipation coursing through the gathered crowd. "Gather, sons and daughters of Israel. Share your trials, for in vulnerability we find strength. Let our words be the flame that ignites a greater resolve." Her voice rose above the murmurs, a rallying cry that resonated deeply, evoking memories of battles fought and sacrifices made. In the hearts of the Israelites, echoes of fear began to dissipate, replaced by an ember of courage. As they shared their stories of mourning and hope, Deborah's presence became a conduit for connection and healing, a reminder of their shared struggle and resilient spirit. But still, a more profound uncertainty lingered. A whisper, like the rustle of leaves foretold by the wind, danced through the gathered throng. Where was the true source of their strength? Was it within the forge of collective hearts, or did they require a more mighty intervention to extinguish the shadows? As the fire crackled and the stars twinkled overhead, the question loomed larger in Deborah's mind, a haunting enigma urging her onward. What was to be the path chosen by a people united yet divided, and could they confront their deepest fears to grasp the divine assurance that awaited them on the horizon? As the night deepened, a stillness settled over the camp, broken only by the crackling of the fire, and the murmurs of prayer that rose like smoke into the heavens. In the flickering light, Deborah's heart beat with an urgency that transcended her own understanding. She stood at the edge of the flickering illumination, her gaze searching the ancient hills that framed the horizon. What lay beyond was more than just the next skirmish. It was the unfolding of a divine narrative that had rested heavily upon her shoulders. "Lord, grant me wisdom," she whispered, her spirit reaching out to the unseen. "What am I to do? Speak to me, guide my steps." The silence that followed felt almost deafening, yet it bore the weight of promise, urging her to trust in what was yet to be revealed. In the shadows, Barak prepared himself for the coming day, wrestling with fears that thrummed within him. Would they find Sisera? Would they be triumphant again, or was this a journey that would lead only to heartbreak? He watched as Deborah spoke to those around the fire, her voice rising, the very embodiment of hope. Yet, even in her steadiness, there lay a flicker of the unknown, a hint of challenge that beckoned him to confront his own doubts. He stepped closer, feeling the warmth of the flame against his skin, and soon found himself enveloped by the stories of the gathered. Each tale shared was a thread woven into the fabric of their collective identity. They spoke of their children, of the blood that had been spilled, and the dreams that had been fragmented by Sisera's reign of terror. As he listened, something broke loose within him, stirring an ancient memory of promise, the God who had led their ancestors out of Egypt, through the wilderness, and into a land flowing with milk and honey. Across the camp, Jael's heart raced in synchrony with Barak's. She sensed the urgency of the moment, and felt its tug on her own spirit. Clutching a simple jug, she made her way outside, pulling aside the drapes that cloaked her dwelling. The cool night air wrapped around her, filling her lungs with the scent of freedom and resolve. Tomorrow would ripple with the consequences of their choices, yet here she was, a silent witness. "I am more than this," she spoke softly to herself, gazing up at the stars. "In this silence there is power. Can I, too, be a vessel for change?" The stars twinkled in response, as if to remind her of the ancient stories whispered among the tales of warriors and women who had altered the course of history. She turned back towards her home, a resolve knitting itself within her. As dawn approached, a sense of foreboding hung palpably in the air, intertwining with the resolve to seek Sisera. Deborah called forth her people once again, her voice resonating with a fierce gentleness. "Brothers and sisters, the heart of our nation beats within each of us. We are called to take up the mantle of our histories, not to step lightly but to tread boldly. Our victory lies not solely in arms but in our unity and faith, a faith that can shatter the darkened veil of fear." Yet beneath the fervor of her words was a deeper awareness. The path ahead was unclear, and the cost of confronting Sisera weighed heavily on her soul. Would their strength carry them through the tide of treachery that lay in wait? As the sun began to spill its first golden light across the land, illuminating the hills that surrounded them, Barak stepped forward, his heart steeled with a newfound courage. "We will seek Sisera and we will confront him together," he declared, his voice ringing with renewed faith. But as he stood among the men and women ready to march, a stirring idea flickered in Deborah's mind, a possibility that had danced at the edge of her consciousness since the night began. What if victory was not just in the confrontation ahead, but in the revelations yet to come? Could the strength they sought also lie in the mysteries of one woman's courage and the unexpected choices they would each have to confront? As they steeled themselves for the day, a question lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken truth. What hidden power would be unveiled in their quest? And could they embrace the unexpected transformations waiting to lead them toward their destiny? As the first rays of sunlight spilled over the ancient hills, casting a warm glow on the faces of the gathered people, an electricity charged the atmosphere. Deborah stood tall amid her people, her presence radiating a calm that belied the storm they were about to enter. With every heartbeat, she felt the ancient rhythms of duty. This day would not merely be a confrontation against Sisera and his forces, but also a confrontation with destiny itself, a destiny that had long waited to unfold. Gather the tribes, she instructed Barak, her voice firm yet filled with compassion. Our strength lies not only in our arms but in our unity. We must walk together as one, just as the tribes of Israel did when they crossed the sea, their hearts knit together in faith and purpose. He nodded in understanding and moved swiftly, summoning each tribe to the gathering. As they assembled, the sound of footsteps mirrored a rising tide of determination. Men and women, young and old, filled the clearing as Barak's voice rang out, calling each by name. Yet, as the throng grew larger and louder, Deborah's gaze drifted toward the quiet corners of her mind, the space where divine whispers took shape. And there it was, a flicker of thought, quick as lightning yet as numinous as the clouds above. Perhaps it was a message seated in her heart long before this hour, whispering of hope in forms they could not yet comprehend. Would her role evolve from mere guide to something greater? The possibility ignited her soul. As the assembly settled, she lifted her hand, a hush falling over the crowd, and began to speak. Today, we engage in more than a battle, we engage in the very fabric of our heritage. Remember the yearning cries of our ancestors who suffered under oppression. They sought deliverance, and our God answered. Her words wove through the hearts of her people, each syllable a thread pulling them closer. Remember too that the mightiest acts can emerge from the smallest hands. Who among us has not felt inadequate at times? Yet, the sacred fire of courage lights even the darkest corners. She felt strength coursing through her as she spoke, emboldening others to rise. The silence deepened under the weight of her words, drawing them into a shared reverie. Soon, a young woman stepped forward, her eyes sparkling with resolve. "Deborah!" she called, voice shaking yet powerful. "What of the women of Israel? Where do we fit in this tale of valor? The ones who seek to protect but are seldom seen as warriors?" The question hung in the air like morning mist, calling forth deep currents of truth. Deborah regarded the young woman with earnestness, understanding that her inquiry pierced the heart of unspoken struggles. "Ah, dear sister, we stand here today not as mere warriors of the battlefield, but as warriors of the spirit. Yours is a sacred role, crucial to the underpinning of our victories. Your courage will shape the course of our history, for every voice and heart is needed." She felt the energies shift among the crowd, murmurs of agreement rippling through the throng. It felt as if layers of hidden potential were unfurling, like petals yielding to the sun. Glamorous visions of women leading battles in unity with their brothers danced in her mind, yet within Deborah, uncertainty bloomed like a wildflower. What tides of transformation awaited them in the days ahead? Her eyes widened as she began to grasp the weight of their collective journey. The unseen bond between individuals held a power that echoed in the ages. Neither man nor woman stood alone in this fight, but together forged an invincible spirit. As they readied themselves to march, she couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary awaited in the unforeseen paths. What power thrummed beneath their skin? What hidden truths were ready to emerge when courage met the call to action? In the stillness before the storm, a new question whispered through her heart, inviting her to embrace the uncertain. Could their intertwining destinies reveal the aspects of themselves they had yet to understand, both as warriors and as witnesses to the transformative grace of faith? As the sun climbed higher, dappling sunlight danced across the assembly, illuminating faces filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Deborah felt the weight of the moment deepen. It was not merely a clash against Sisera's formidable forces, but an awakening of the spirit within her people. Each person gathered there seemed to pulse with the same question: what awaited them in the crucible of battle? The crowd was now a living tapestry, woven from the stories of tribes long interwoven, each fabric thread representing a different journey and struggle. As they began to march, a sense of anticipation hung thick in the air, wrapping them in an embrace of unity. Deborah led them forward, her heart thundering in rhythm with the minds and souls around her. The path was rugged, winding through valleys and hills that had witnessed countless tales of strife and perseverance. As they walked, the sound of their feet mingled with the rustling of leaves, nature echoing their unyielding resolve. She caught glimpses of the faces around her, some showing fear, others fierce determination. The silent question loomed again: what spring of strength would emerge from the depths of their shared experience? Suddenly, one of the men in the group, an elder named Zebulun, spoke up. "Deborah, how do we ensure our courage does not wane when faced with the might of Sisera's army?" His voice trembled, exposing vulnerability beneath the armor of masculinity. The assembly paused, all eyes turning toward her, searching. Her instincts for leadership flared, but she felt the weight of his inquiry pressing against her. Courage, elder, often dwells not in the absence of fear but in the collective heartbeat echoing through the souls of the brave. We come together today, not as lone soldiers, but as a unified body with a shared purpose. We take courage from one another, drawing on the strength embedded in our history, a history that knows suffering, yet also knows deliverance. Barak stood beside her, nodding with understanding, signaling she was not alone in this endeavor. And should that courage falter, we shall remind each other of the promises that bind us, he declared, igniting cheers of acknowledgement from the crowd, the energy building once again. Yet, what settled in Deborah's heart was a new realization: what if their strength was born not only from their shared past but also from revealing their vulnerabilities? Could this be the key to forging an even deeper unity? She sensed the divine presence swirling among them, beckoning for honesty, connection, and trust that transcended the battlefield. As they pressed forward, the landscape shifted, and soon they found themselves standing upon a ridge overlooking the battlefield below. The sight of Sisera's army against pitched, equipment glinting in the midday sun stirred dread in many hearts, yet it also sparked an ember of fierce resolve. Deborah placed her hand over her heart, feeling its rhythm. The pulse of her people surged with possibility. In that moment, she understood that they confronted more than an enemy. They confronted their own fears and shortcomings, each challenge representing a chance to rise above what history had written for them, a divine script evolving before their very eyes. The crowd murmured among themselves, and they began to share stories of their past victories, tales of resilience. The narrative of defeat shifted, transformed into a mosaic of triumph, shaping new identities and affirming their purpose. Deborah listened, a gentle smile of encouragement lighting her face, knowing that every story shared added to the mounting strength of their spirit. Yet, as the sun began its descent, painting the horizon in hues of fiery gold and deep crimson, Deborah felt the weight of new questions creeping into her heart. In this moment of awakening, what truths still lay hidden within them? Would their unity withstand the fiercest trials, not merely on the battlefield but among the shadows that lingered in their own hearts? The hour of revelation approached. What would it unveil? As the last rays of sunlight dipped beneath the horizon, turning the sky into a canvas of twilight hues, the assembly continued to swell with unspoken words and electrifying energy. Deborah stood before them, her silhouette outlined against the fading light, a figure of both grace and strength. She felt the pulse of the moment, a living testament to what they had become together. Yet an ache of uncertainty nagged at the corners of her mind. The approaching night seemed to echo the deeper unknown she sensed within herself and her people. "Tonight, as we stand on the precipice of what is to come," she began, her voice steady yet inviting, "let us not forget that darkness can reveal truths often hidden in the light." The crowd leaned in, their eyes glistening with anticipation. In the shifts of shadow and the flickers of uncertainty, we find not only our fears but also the essence of courage. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle among them. Visions of her own struggles danced in her mind, the moments of doubt, the weight of judgment from others, and the incessant questioning of her own path. For a fleeting instant, the burden felt unbearably heavy, but then she inhaled deeply, recalling the guiding wisdom that had accompanied her thus far. "Remember," she continued, "it is in revealing our vulnerabilities that we forge sacred bonds. Together we are more than an army. We are a testament to hope." Barak stepped forward, drawn by her words as if compelled by a force beyond understanding. "But what of the battle, Deborah? Will our heartstrings sustain against the thunder of Sisera's might? The urgency in his voice resonated with the crowd, and a rustle of anxiety swept through them. The embers of resolve flickered as shadows stretched longer. Deborah felt the weight of his query deepen. Every challenge carries within it a hidden power, waiting to reveal itself. Our collective story woven from ashes and victories holds the key. We must summon the courage to embrace both the light and the dark within us. Therein lies our true strength. As she spoke, memories of the women who had understood her struggle came flooding back, their whispers echoing in her mind, the wisdom of those who had faced their own battles in silence. They had found strength not in solitude but in the community of shared experience. As we prepare for the dawn, let us gather stories of our forebears, for every tale of sorrow contains seeds of triumph, she announced, her conviction surging forth. Zebulun, emboldened, raised his hand to speak once more. But the tales we share must not glorify only our victories. Shall we not also honor the moments of defeat and despair? For therein lies the truth of our humanity. Silence fell upon the assembly as they absorbed his words. Indeed, Deborah replied thoughtfully. Our journey is nuance woven with both light and dark threads. What we share should nurture understanding and compassion. And what I ask of myself, I ask of you, be willing to explore the shadows, for they are also part of our divine tapestry. With that, whispers began to circulate through the crowd. They exchanged stories of loss, of love, of unrecognized potential, but also tales of unexpected serenity and newfound strength. It became a holy exchange, a moment where vulnerability transformed into collective power, an unbreakable thread that tied their fates together. The wind began to stir, carrying with it a hint of something ancient, as if the very earth beneath them acknowledged their gathering. Deborah closed her eyes for a moment, seeking guidance, and then opened them to see her people, faces transformed by the truth they had begun to embrace. Yet, as the first stars began to twinkle in the indigo sky, a question loomed larger than the encroaching night. What other mysteries lay hidden in the shadows of their hearts far beyond the battlefield that awaited them? If they were to venture into the unknown, not just as warriors but as whole souls, could they truly unlock the depths of their strength? As the night deepened around them, a stillness settled over the assembly, much like the calm before a storm. The stars, twinkling overhead, seemed to listen intently to the tales being woven amongst the gathering. Deborah felt an almost palpable energy, threads of connection binding each heart in that sacred moment, and she understood their urgency. Yet, within that stillness lay a profound mystery, one that tugged at her soul. Tonight, she murmured, her voice a soft call against the fabric of night, let us listen not only to each other but to the silence itself. In that silence, perhaps we can hear the ancient wisdom of the land and the echo of our ancestors' prayers. She beckoned the assembly to close their eyes, urging them to delve into the depths of perseverance embodied within their lineage. As they quieted, the air grew thick with an unspoken energy. Deborah envisioned the hands of her forebears, those stalwart women and men who had faced their own Sisera-like oppressors. She could see their faces, carved by hardship yet illuminated by an unwavering faith, guiding her through the shadowy recesses of her own doubt. What did they whisper in the sacred stillness? What lessons had they left unspoken? The night pulled tighter around them, and in the hush she heard a whisper, a gentle urging from the winds that danced through the olive trees surrounding them. Remember, Deborah, strength is not merely in the sword but in the spirit that wields it. At the edge of the gathering, a figure stepped forward, a woman cloaked in the soft fabric of twilight shadows. Though her form was elusive, her essence radiated the warmth of generations past. Deborah, she spoke. I am Jael, and I bring forth the secret that lies buried in the heart of this land. As Jael began to weave her tale, the listeners held their breath, enraptured by her presence. Years ago, while I tended to my family's home, I felt the tension in the air as Sisera's armies swept through our lands. My heart ached for our people, for I knew the strength both hidden and unlocked that resides within you all. I stood against the tide of despair, an ordinary woman who tapped into the undercurrents of faith and courage. Deborah felt a shiver race down her spine as Jael's voice unfurled stories of bravery amid the quiet lives of women who resisted without swords. They were not just bystanders in the shadow of warriors but forces of tremendous power themselves, working from the edges of the battlefield to protect their homes and families. Remember, Jael continued, it was within the stillness of our homes that we crafted our resolve. It was our hands, calloused and humble, that laid the stage for what the world cannot see. The power of quiet actions birthed revolutions. Whispers surged through the assembly, igniting a fire within. Deborah stood tall, heart swelling with recognition these tales belonged to them all. Their experiences, both monumental and subtle, formed a tapestry of resilience that defied the expectations of history. But what does this mean for us in the battle that awaits? Barak interjected, his brow furrowed with a question that mirrored the uncertainty swirling in many hearts. Can we truly march into the fray armed with our shared stories? With courage born from the hidden strengths of our hearts? Deborah pondered, letting his question seep into her marrow, realizing that perhaps the key to unlocking the fullest potential of their gathering lay in weaving together the narratives of strength and vulnerability. Your heart, Barak, and the hearts of every person here are the swords we carry into battle, she finally responded, her own voice steadier now, suffused with newfound clarity. But first, we must understand that beneath the outward bravado, true strength pulses in unity, a community fortified by the shared burdens of one another. In that moment, an understanding coalesced within her. They had been woven into the very fabric of this landscape, a living testament to all that had come before. And as they prepared to face Sisera, they would do so not as isolated warriors but as a collective force resilient in the face of adversity. Questions hung in the air, unspoken yet palpable. Could each individual's story truly transform the course of their destiny? Might the whispers of the past turn into the resilience they would need to face the dawn? As they regarded one another, the assembly began to pulse with a hope that shimmered faintly against the persistent darkness awaiting them. The answer beckoned, just out of reach, a mist still to be unveiled. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting golden rays across the battlefield, Deborah stood among her people, their faces reflecting a tapestry of emotions: fear, hope, uncertainty, and an unmistakable sense of purpose. The glory of the dawn felt like a harbinger of change, infusing the air with possibilities yet to be realized. This was not merely a day for battle, it was a day for revelation. Let us remember, she called, her voice carrying the weight of her resolve, today, we step forward not as separate tribes but as a united force, as a single heart beating in rhythm. The assembly humbly nodded, their eyes locked onto her with fervent expectation. In that moment, she understood the power of unity was not just in numbers but in the weaving of their collective experiences, both mundane and extraordinary. As the people prepared for the clash against Sisera's army, the atmosphere crackled with a divine energy, inciting forgotten flames of courage within. Deborah felt the echoes of her ancestors vibrating through her veins, women who had defied silence, men who had bucked against oppression. Their stories were now the very essence of her being, and she could feel them urging her onward. Gather close. She beckoned, seeing the need for intimacy through shared stories. Let us not forget the power of the voice, each word a sword, each tale a shield. The people encircled her, shifting closer, eyes wide with curiosity and determination. One by one, they began to share their histories, threads of pain woven with moments of triumph. Their voices rose in a symphonious cadence that silenced any remnants of fear, a unified chorus igniting a fire deep within them all. Then, a familiar face emerged, a woman adorned in simple garments, but with an aura of fierce determination. It was Jael, holding the quiet power of a looming confrontation. She stepped forward, passion radiating from her. "Deborah, I have been waiting for this moment," she exclaimed, her voice crackling with raw energy. "In my heart, I knew our paths would intertwine. Today, I will stand and fight not only for my family but for the destiny of our people." As those words hung in the air, something extraordinary shifted. Jael's resolve ignited a collective epiphany among the assembly, a dawning realization that every individual had the power to effect change, and that the true might of Israel lay not in weapons but in the myriad acts of courage they could summon together. Deborah felt her heart swell as Jael continued, newfound confidence brimming within her. "Let us confront Sisera today, not merely with our swords but with our spirits united," she proclaimed. As she spoke, the sky above seemed to vibrate with possibility. the light of the sun shimmering just beneath the surface of gathering clouds. What we confront is not just a battle but the very spirit of oppression that has haunted us for too long. The crowd roared, echoing through the valleys and up the mountains, their voices a powerful declaration that they would no longer be defined by fear. With the tension of the impending clash palpable in the air, Deborah felt the prophecy unfurl around them like a blossoming flower, a revelation of potential stitched together by their shared resolve. A flare of divine insight struck Deborah. What if the key to our ultimate victory lies in embracing vulnerability? She proposed, her voice rising above the din. In sharing our truths and transforming them into instruments of purpose? The world may see us as fractured, but together, we are an unstoppable force. A moment of silence enveloped the assembly, each warrior absorbing the weight of her declaration. Gradually, murmurs of agreement blossomed, rising like a tide ready to crash against the shore. They felt the power of truth coursing through them, awakening slumbering intimacies long forgotten. The assembly moved as one, the walls of isolation crumbling, replaced by the bonds of sisterhood and brotherhood. As the horizon blazed with the dawn, Barak stepped forward, his heart thundering in sync with the pulse of Israel. He looked to Deborah, a fire glinting in his eyes. Then let us march together against Sisera and his forces, not as fearful soldiers waiting for battle, but as bearers of change ready to reckon with our destinies. With a collective roar, the Israelites united, assembling their courage like weapons of ancient strength. They marched toward the battlefield, knowing that today was not just about defeating Sisera but about reclaiming their narrative, rewriting details etched into the fabric of their lives. As they drew closer, a trembling wind swept through the land, carrying with it echoes of ancient promises. Deborah raised her hands, feeling the currents of her ancestors guiding her. With each step, we declare our legacy, our power, our faith, she shouted. The ground reverberated beneath them as they advanced, unified in purpose and spirit. Those who had once faced Sisera in fear now stood as a testament to the resilience ignited within them. Women and men walked side by side, their hearts stitched together by the wounds of loss and the salve of hope. As dawn's light embraced them, they felt invincible, not because they were warriors alone, but because they were a people transformed, vulnerable yet strong. In the distance, Sisera's army began to assemble, cruel and powerful. But as Deborah met Barak's gaze, she knew that all battle was more than physical. The true confrontation was the spirit of fear that had held them captive for too long. Beneath the banners of war, a new understanding arose. As they finally stood at the cusp of confrontation, Deborah called out, her voice steady, "We do not fight merely against an army. We fight for the essence of our people, our freedom, our future." The assembly thrummed with fervor, every individual feeling the pulse of purpose intertwining with each heartbeat. It was not just about victory, it was about transformation, the unveiling of who they were meant to be. And so, they surged forward, hearts ablaze with newfound resolve, ready to confront Sisera and reclaim their destiny. In that charged moment, encompassing the horizon ahead, a testament emerged, mosaic crafted from stories of silent struggles, their truths unveiled in radiant courage. Victory awaited them, not solely on the battlefield, but in the echoes of their shared history, the release of fears, and the reclamation of their narrative. The battle they fought that day became a profound revelation, a testament to what happens when voices rise together, converging into unity and spirit. As conflict flared and overshadowed the land, they emerged not just as warriors but as a collective of transformed hearts, unyielding in purpose. And as all forces collided beneath the watchful gaze of heaven, the miracle manifested not just in the victory over Sisera, but in the irrevocable truth that the divine sparks of history lay within them. They began to realize that the shadows that haunted them did not possess power. It was they, with their love and unity, that redefined the essence of strength. In the days that followed, the people of Israel changed the course of their history. They became a testament to faith, resilience, and the beauty forged in unity. And it was through the echoes of Deborah and Jael's courage that they learned the greatest victories are birthed not from might, but from the power to embrace the hidden strength in vulnerability and the unwavering light of faith. The legacy of that day rippled through generations, a reminder not just of battles won but a call to embrace vulnerability, unity, and the profound recognition that darkness is only met with the light of togetherness. So it was that the story of Deborah and her extraordinary people breathed life into the very essence of faith, one that, echoing through time, ultimately led to a revelation that would transcend the ages.